Now your hosts, Matt and Brandon.
Welcome, everyone. This is Matt.
This is Brandon.
This is Amusement Park Road Trip. And Brandon, you know where we're taking a road trip to today?
Yeah, we are going to Knoebels.
That's right. Yes. Knoebels Amusement Resort. It is a resort. I was almost going to say park, but it does have lodging. Well, you lodge yourself. Is that how you would even say it?
You can lodge yourself into the park.
You can go camping there. So it is a resort, which is pretty cool. So yeah, Knoebels Amusement Resort in Elysburg, Pennsylvania. There's another pronunciation though. I've watched a bunch of videos on this. I'm sure you have too. And some people say Elysburg, and then some people say Elysburg. So I apologize to anybody out there that's saying you are saying it wrong. You sound like an idiot. We're going to say, well, it's tough. I want to say Elysburg.
That's what I would say.
The problem I have is that it was a Pennsylvania radio station where I swear I heard them say Elysburg. So Knoebels Amusement Park was built by the Knoebel family, and it was there for a little while before officially opened July 4th, 1926. There were some things there before. Before it was a popular picnic destination, which if you look on maps, it's like in the mountains. So it's beautiful. It makes sense that people would go there for picnics. It was right by a sawmill. So families would come up to meet their dads and husbands, and they'd have picnics there. And a local farmer in the area, Henry Knoebel, he attracted the travelers with horse-drawn hay rides. And I guess that worked out for him. He started selling soda and ice cream and other snacks. And it was known as Knoebels Grove. In 1926, when it opened with a swimming pool that had a filtration system, which was pretty exciting. It was known as the Crystal Pool, which is still there today. And before, it was just a creek-fed pool. So I was kind of confused because if you look on their website, it says that it's still like natural. Well, let's see. What does it say? Cool off in nearly 900,000 gallons of refreshing mountain stream water. So I thought, okay, so is it still being fed by the stream? And it could be. It's just filtrated, and I assume it's chlorinated. So, but that's kind of where it all started, was the swimming pool, the Crystal Pool. And also in 1926, part of it officially opening, Henry had a restaurant, a steam-powered Philadelphia Toboggan Company Carousel. That's a mouthful. And then a few games. So July 4th, 1926, they open it. They have a restaurant, so they have food, they have entertainment, they have the swimming pool, and that is the beginning of Knoebels Amusement Park. And actually, the Knoebel family still owns it, so it just keeps being handed down, which I think is pretty cool. Last thing, so Knoebels is pretty big. There's 64 attractions, including 6 roller coasters and 2 water rides, which is pretty cool. One, you get absolutely drenched. I don't know if you've seen it. It's a giant boat that just goes down, and I think the whole purpose is just to absolutely soak you. Sploosh? Skaloosh.
Soaked your head, fresh boy.
I said sploosh. I think that's the name in holes. Anyway, skaloosh. So yeah, that water slide absolutely drenches you.
Which the people from Holes, the movie, would have really appreciated this ride.
They probably would have. Some fun facts. I enjoy this. Knoebels, if you go on their website, you immediately see a squirrel. They do have mascots, which I love when a park has mascots. So the squirrel, a chipmunk. That is a terrible mistake. They do have a chipmunk. Cosmo is the chipmunk. So that is their main mascot. They also have Dexter the raccoon, Piper, which is a red fox, and you'll like this one, Brandon, Creeper, spelled with a K, and that is their Halloween mascot, which is pretty cool.
What is he?
I think he has a pumpkin for a head. He looks friendly, but also terrifying.
Friendly, but terrifying.
Yeah, you know that look.
Yeah, he looks pretty terrifying.
Yeah. Some fun facts, like I said, Knoebels, if you go on their website or to ask anybody, they might mention this. It is America's largest free admission park.
That is crazy to me.
Yeah, it's free parking. Admission is free, and then you just pay to ride. So if you want to just go walk around and enjoy the sights, the sounds, the smells, you can just walk right in there. Which is another weird thing watching videos or looking at the map. When you look at an amusement park, you always look for where to start is the gate. And there's no gate. Yeah.
How do they keep people out in the middle of the night?
That's a good question. Man, maybe there is a gate and we just sounded like idiots.
There are no gates at this park. Please come in at any time.
Yeah, well, they also have to do crowd control. I'm sure there's a limit of how many people can be in there. So
there's got to be some kind of entrance.
You got to pass by somebody, but still free parking. I remember a time, quick tangent. I was going to a concert, and Brendan, you're familiar with this venue. It's out in the middle of nowhere. Literally, there's nowhere else to park. You get off the highway, and the only
right next
place
to the lake.
Yep, right next to the lake. The only place to park is there. And so we pulled up. My brother was really drunk in the back. We were going to see Children of Bodom, and they asked for, we'll say it's $15. I gave them a 20. My brother thought I handed them $15. And so he thought we were about to start driving off, and he yells from the back, "Thanks for ripping us off." And it was a very awkward pause as the girl looks back there and goes, "It's not my fault. You have to pay." Like, I'm not making the rules. I'm just doing my job. And so we just sat there in silence as she counted out our change. So at Knoebels, you wouldn't have to worry about any of those.
That'd be a
awkward...
much better place to see the Children of Bodom.
Yeah. You wouldn't have to worry about having any of those awkward exchanges because parking is free, which is pretty nice.
I wonder what the percentage is or how many people just go and see the sights and hang out. It's got to be great for parents, I'd assume, because maybe they don't want to do all the stuff. They just want to take their kids and have it be a pretty economical day, and they can just hang out.
Yeah. It'd be nice to show up, pay a few $5-10 to ride some of the roller coasters, and then just enjoy walking around and pay for your kids.
Could be pretty expensive if you really want to ride all the rides. So 64, is that how many? 64 attractions.
Yeah, but there is also, you can buy a pass to ride almost all the rides. Some of them are excluded, but you can ride almost all of them with like an unlimited pass kind of thing.
But you could also do the a la carte option and just, if you want to go on one or two, you can totally do that.
Yeah, which is pretty cool. Another thing to mention, Haunted Mansion, which is one of it's a very popular dark ride there. One of the best. It's always voted as one of the best dark rides. And I was listening to an interview with it wasn't the owner, but a guy that has worked there forever. And he says it's one of the best dark rides, but every year we lose to like Spider-Man. And it's funny because you think dark ride, you just categorize those differently in your head. Spider-Man and Haunted Mansion. So pretty funny. It's voted one of the best, but it never wins. But yeah, Haunted Mansion, it just celebrated its 50th birthday, which is pretty cool.
So it's just a couple years younger than another ride called Haunted Mansion.
Yeah. I mean, that name is generic enough. It's not like it was super clever. And they're like, no, you can't take that name. It's haunted and it's a mansion. Haunted Mansion.
You can't, if it's so big, you can't just call it a house.
That's true. And Haunted House is too generic. So I think it passes Haunted Mansion. And one thing I noticed as I started studying this or doing research on this park and watching videos of walkthroughs and things like that is there's a bunch of really old rides and attractions you really won't find anywhere else. And we'll kind of get into that as we walk around the park. But that was something I thought was pretty cool. It just feels very different. It feels very old, but not old and like falling apart. It feels preserved, which is really cool. So I think that's very unique. So yeah, why don't we take a walk through the park?
Let's do it.
All right. So this segment, we're taking a walk through the park. Now, if we pass over a ride quickly and you're like, wait a minute, that's one of the greatest rides ever. Why didn't they talk more about that? Don't you worry. Knoebels is going to be split up into 2 episodes. This is the first one, more of an overview of the park. The second episode, we're going to focus more on some of the best rides there. So don't get upset if we just quickly pass over Phoenix, and we don't mention anything else about it. So we're going to enter into the park, and we're going to start
at the gates, the hypothetical gates.
We're going to start at the hypothetical gates. Maybe there is gates. I've never seen them. You walk past security. I know that. So there's a security building on your left as you walk in, and we're in the park. Of course, there's a classic Ferris wheel to your left, but to the right is a pretty amazing roller coaster, steel roller coaster called Impulse. And Brandon, you can kind of see my screen. Does this look familiar at all to you? Is there a specific feature about this roller coaster that looks familiar?
Looks to have a nice big launch.
It's interesting, isn't it?
It is.
So at our local amusement park, we have a roller coaster that looks very similar to this, but they are different. How would you...
different names.
How would you explain that? When you start, the lift hill is literally straight up. Your cart is all the way back and you're going straight up, but that's the lift hill. And so it goes the speed of a lift hill. Whereas at ours amusement park, that you would be shot up and over. It's
so
like
this
an
one
arch.
Is like a general incline.
Yeah. They're saving space, I guess.
Gotcha.
Instead of a slow incline, it's just you go straight up. You go over that hill and you go straight down.
That sounds uncomfortable.
I don't know.
Maybe just because I'm used to the other ride. And
right, when you're shot straight up.
Yeah. Which is a great ride. So I'm sure this is a great ride, but I'd be interested to see the difference between the lift hill.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Right behind Impulse is a building shaped like a loaf of bread, which I love.
It is a loaf of bread.
It's a loaf. I thought about making some joke of and that's the bathrooms where you lay a loaf, but this is serious. We're not into potty humor. So there is a loaf of bread. I love it. Of course, you can get food there.
What kind of food can you get there? Do I need to ask?
There is Dole soft serve.
Yeah, makes sense. A building that looks like a loaf of bread is where you should get ice cream.
Well, there's more. Cookie Nook.
Cookies too, right? Cookies and ice cream. That's
bread.
what I expect.
Yeah. I mean, imagine going there and just getting a nice loaf of bread. Like, all right, kids, let's enjoy our loaf of bread here. All right, we're moving on. So we're going to pass quite a few of these more generic amusement park rides.
The kind of rides you'd find in any park.
Right.
Or just about any park is what you're saying.
We already mentioned Skaloosh, which is the giant water slide where you just get absolutely soaked. And we're going to end up here on our left, the Crystal Pool on the left. So it's pretty cool. It's still there. This is where it all started, was this pool. It's got some diving boards, 900,000 gallons of refreshing mountain stream water. That's pretty cool. It all started there and everything's just kind of built up around it. Behind the pool is the second coaster we're going to talk about, which is Twister. So this is a classic wooden roller coaster. Now, Brandon, I want to ask you, this is paying tribute. It's based very closely on the famous Mr. Twister. Have you heard of Mr. Twister?
No, I haven't.
This is an amusement park podcast and you've never heard of Mr. Twister. That's okay. Neither have I. I had to look it up. So this is in, I'm nervous. I'm nervous pronouncing names and getting them wrong. Elych Gardens in Denver, Colorado. It's a wooden roller coaster. And this is very similar to that one. I believe this roller coaster is defunct. Maybe not. Maybe it's still open. No, it closed in 1994. Anyway, Knoebels version is just called Twister. And instead of, so it's a wooden roller coaster and there are hills and all of that, but more so it's just passing through itself. It's more a twister, like you're constantly turning and stuff. So it's pretty cool. We will, like I mentioned, we will talk more about that roller coaster in our next episode as we keep walking through Knoebels Amusement Park down Knoebels Boulevard. And oh no, do you see what I see, Brandon? It is a drop tower.
The dreaded drop tower.
Stratosphere. Now, I often have the same dreams over and over. I have a few dreams that I have multiple times a month. And one of them Brandon is very familiar with because I text him every time I have it. At our amusement park, we have a drop tower and a how would you explain it? A blast off. It's called the rocket. And when
Blast
you
off.
blast off.
How would you describe it? Just call it a blast off.
I don't know, because drop tower or people are like, oh yeah, you go up and you drop.
So there's a drop and then there's a lift and drop.
A lift and drop.
We have a lift and drop. This one's just a drop.
Very sped up lift and drop. Yeah, a blast off. So this one is a little bit smaller. So it's a 148 feet tower and ours is around 200 feet. But anyway, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about Stratosphere here at Knoebels. I don't know if I could ride this. What about you, Brandon?
You got 64 of the rides to do. I think I could skip this one.
Yeah, we're going to skip this one, especially because right next to it is one of the most interesting rides that I'd seen at this entire park. I've never seen
the smoking section.
Yeah. No, flying turns.
Oh, yes. This ride is cool.
When you look at it on a map, it looks like a water slide. And when you see it in person, it kind of looks like a giant water slide. But it is a trackless roller coaster, which is crazy.
It just sounds terrible.
It sounds terrible. Have you seen it?
I have. It sounds like a bad idea, but it looks really cool and it works.
Yeah. So if you haven't seen it before, I encourage you to check out a video so it'll make more sense. But it really is a trackless roller coaster. Of course, you are connected to a lift hill that takes you up, and then it drops you into a wooden
tunnel.
Yeah, half tunnel. And it, like I said, it's like a big water slide. And so the roller coaster is free to move whichever way it does. But of course, it's going to move basically the same way every time because of science. They've built it so it'll turn certain ways and everything.
Because of science.
Right.
On the description, it says it's controlled only by the forces of gravity, which, I mean, a lot of things would break at amusement park if gravity all of a sudden decided to stop working, but it would be really bad if it stopped working while on this ride.
Yes. Something I did learn about it in listening to another podcast about Knoebels is that they actually weigh you. So you have to go up and be weighed. Of course, that weight is not shown to anybody else but the ride operators, because they have to place you in a certain order and whether you're riding with somebody or not, and who's going to ride in the front and who rides in the back. So there's a whole science behind this ride because they want you to have the best experience. So pretty cool ride, obviously.
Best experience, not necessarily your weight and your placement would determine whether you survive or not. It just gives you the best experience. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Sounds like a very audacious task to give to likely someone who's a teenager.
Yeah, there'll be a lot of awkward moments. We're going to keep moving along. So across from Flying Turns, you go across Phoenix Lane, which I love that they have these streets. In fact, one of these was actually an operating street, like even up until the 90s or maybe even early 2000s. And they would have cross guards that would let people cross. But this was an active road you could drive on. I think it was Knoebels Boulevard, but I could be wrong. But anyway, we're going to cross Phoenix Lane. And before we get to one of the most iconic rides, we're going to stop at Fandango, which I have never been on a ride like this, but I would love to. It is a swinging pendulum. Brandon, have you ever been on a ride like this?
No, I'm good.
Well, I would love it.
Mm-mm.
It's like a wheel and spoke or a hub. I don't know how to explain that as I see it.
Reminds me of an episode of The Simpsons where Bart and Lisa are fighting each other and they go to amusement park and they're on a ride like this. They spit and their friend is in the middle of them. So each time they spit, it ends up going on his face. Yeah.
I've never seen that.
That's funny. But that's what it looks like to me, is that ride.
I've never seen that, but yeah, it's an interesting ride. I'd love to ride it. Never been on one. All right. Time for the big coaster. And again, we're going to shortly cover this. We're going to be quick. And next week, we'll go more into details. But this is the Phoenix, another wooden roller coaster. It wins many awards for being one of the best wooden roller coasters. And from what I understand, one of the best parts about it is the amount of airtime you have on this coaster. So it's pretty massive. It looks like it's really fast. And there's a bunch of hills. And every time you go up, there's so much airtime that's what people love about it. So more to come on that next week. As we continue moving along, we have a bunch of really exciting things to cover right now, and I don't know which order to go into. So I'm going to start with, we're going to talk about Black Diamond, the mining ride. which looks amazing. It's a roller coaster, but I don't know if I would describe it that way. What do you think?
I don't know. I guess it's kind of roller coaster-esque.
It's like a fast moving dark ride, which is really cool. I could be wrong about this, but I think I've heard it, and I'll do more research on this for next week because we'll be covering this. I think I've heard that this came from another park. So it either came from another park or they built it to mirror another park's ride. But it's really cool. It's a dark ride you go through. You're going through a mine. There's a bunch of skeletons. And anyway, really cool theming, all indoors. But here's the part that is really exciting for me and Brandon. As we get older, we appreciate more boring stuff. We appreciate the boring stuff. So right next to Black Diamond is not only the Knoebels History Museum, but also a mining museum.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So 2 for 1 right next to it, which I love. And again, because this amusement park is free to enter, this museum, both of these museums are free, which is pretty cool. Honestly, I'm not even making a joke. I would show up and just go to those museums for fun. I enjoy that kind of stuff. Brandon, I believe you enjoy that kind of stuff as well.
I would agree.
So now we're going to move along to another museum. I decided just to group the 3 museums all in a row.
Carousel Museum, huh?
The Knoebels Carousel Museum. I haven't seen much on this one. I know at this museum, and we'll talk a little bit more of this later, but you can buy a brass ring. Do you know what I'm talking about when I say you can buy a brass ring?
No.
Okay.
A ring on your finger?
No, it is not a ring on your finger, but we will get to that. We're going to keep moving along, and we're going to get to, again, another iconic attraction at Knoebels, Haunted Mansion. So the outside actually doesn't look haunted, but maybe that makes it even more scary.
Mm.
I don't know. I don't know what your thoughts are. Did you see the outside?
Know what you're getting into. Yes, I've seen the outside.
It looks pretty normal, but is it iconic right there?
It doesn't look like a dilapidated old mansion.
The ghosts take care of the inside. The employees take care of the outside and keep it nice. So we're going to cover Haunted Mansion in our episode next week and talk about that, especially it celebrating its 50th anniversary, which is pretty cool. A great dark ride. Like I said, it's always nominated for awards, but never wins when it's compared to Spider-Man at Universal. That I think is just funny. We are going to jump around a bit because there is a whole bunch of stuff in this bottom. I don't know what direction we're looking. So this bottom area of the park closest to the entrance, and when you enter, if you go right, there's a whole bunch of stuff we are not going to be able to cover. But I did want to mention, of course, there's a classic train, Ole Smoky, which I love. Every good amusement park has a train.
Yeah, this is cool.
We are going to talk about, sorry, I have to find it. We're going to talk about the bumper cars. After all, we are the bumper car boys.
Indeed, we are.
So what's unique about these bumper cars is that I don't know if it's self-proclaimed or this is the fans making it this, but apparently they are the best bumper cars in the US. They're the easiest to steer, I guess, which would make it the best bumper car.
Just a quick thing that I noticed.
Yeah.
You've been going through and looking at these rides and they state whether they're open, their price, and then their minimum height to ride.
Yeah.
This has a higher height than some of the roller coasters we've looked at.
Yeah. 54 inches, which is 5 feet. I mean, you have to be tall enough to reach the pedals.
I guess it's a weird thing to think that you can go on this roller coaster. This bumper car, I don't know, not quite tall enough. But I guess the pedals makes a difference.
I realize I just said 54 inches is 5 feet. I think my math is wrong there. But anyway, it's not 5 feet. You have to reach
it
the
is
pedal.
4.5 feet.
4.5 feet. Yeah, that's good math.
Thanks.
Something about these bumper cars is there's an island. I don't know how else to explain it. An island in the center that you just drive in a circle around that. I don't know if that's more common or if it's just for bumper cars, it's more common to have a completely open space. I'm used to having a huge open space, but maybe having an island is more of the norm. And I just didn't know that because I grew up with one that didn't have an island in the middle. So I don't know. We should know.
I don't know what to tell you.
We're the bumper car boys. We should know.
We will become the bumper car boys as we explore more bumper cars.
Yeah.
Now we're just bumper car lads, bumper car tots.
we are getting towards the end, back to the entrance. We're almost done walking around the park, and we get to the Grand Carousel. Now, this carousel is amazing. It's something I've never seen before. And coming back to the brass ring, on this carousel, if you ride on the outside, there is an arm that sticks out towards the horses you're on. And this arm, you reach, I don't know how to explain it. You reach into, it's holding like these rings. And so as you pass by, you grab a ring. And if you get a brass ring, you get to ride the ride again for free. But the rest are all, so there's one brass ring and then a bunch of just silver rings. It's really cool. I don't know how else to explain it. So if you're interested, I encourage you to go.
Yeah, that sounds dangerous that you're grabbing something while you're riding the ride.
Absolutely. I watched it and I'm like, how does your arm not get ripped off? Like how many wrists have been broken? So many things could go wrong there. This is another iconic ride that we will cover in our next week's episode because it is just so unique. So I didn't want to leave that one out. Well, Brandon, we've taken a long walk around the park. The sun is starting to set. We have time for one more attraction ride. We are going to take the Scenic Skyway. So this Scenic Skyway is like a ski lift. What we're more familiar with. You ride it up the mountain and you get to the top and it just turns around and comes back down. Which doesn't sound exciting, but that is something I think both of us would thoroughly enjoy.
This is not a method of transportation. This is literally go up the mountain, come back down.
Yeah, it's not transportation.
Kind of expensive for that, if you ask me.
Oh yeah, I didn't even
$5.
$5
for that. I think, assuming it's very costly to operate this machine.
I don't know. Apparently,
it's a long ride, 14 minutes.
Yeah, that 14 minutes. I guess you're paying for your time. So that's it. We've basically walked around the park and covered the important things.
I literally walked around the park.
Yeah. I apologize if we missed anything. And if we did miss anything, you can hit us up on social media at Amusement Park Road Trip or on Facebook and Instagram, or you can email us at amusementparkroadtrip@gmail.com. Let us know if we missed anything, missed any of your favorite parts. Like I said, for the 10th time now, we will be covering some of these rides in more depth next week. So we'll take a little breath. That was a long walk, a lot of walking. We're going to do a quiz time, Brandon. How do you do on quizzes? Do you like quizzes?
I usually try to distance myself from anything that reminds me of school, but I will allow it.
I agree. I have 3 questions for you. Okay. And this is all about the park. So here we go. Question 1. The Haunted Mansion just celebrated its 50th year, but the iconic Knoebels Haunted Mansion sign out front hasn't always been there. What did the previous sign say? Was it A, the original Haunted Mansion, B, Knoebels Haunted House, or C, the scariest Haunted Mansion?
Interesting. I am going to hope it's not A, because as I noted, this is not the original Haunted Mansion. I'm going to go with B, Knoebels Haunted House.
That is correct. Yes, there is a great video on YouTube of Jacob the Carpetbagger, which we both enjoy. And he gets a behind the scenes tour of the Haunted Mansion, and they take him back and show him the original sign, which said Knoebels Haunted House, even though it was always Knoebels Haunted Mansion. The sign, for whatever reason, said Haunted House.
Sounds very amusement park.
All right. Question number 2. The award-winning roller coaster, Phoenix, is a staple at Knoebels, but it wasn't always at Knoebels, which this just blows my mind. What park did this coaster come from? Was it in A, Playland Park in San Antonio, Texas, B, Cedar Point in Sandusky, Ohio, or C, Six Flags Great America in Jackson, New Jersey?
That is a good question. For proximity's sake, I'm going to guess C, Six Flags Great Adventure.
You are wrong. Playland Park in San Antonio, Texas.
That's quite a travel.
That is a huge travel. They went there, they marked all of the pieces and everything, and then took it down and brought it to Pennsylvania to set it back up as Phoenix. And if I remember correctly, they didn't actually have the blueprints and kind of just had to rebuild it with all the parts. So that's really interesting. I love that fact about it. All right. And last question. How many times does the iconic Twister roller coaster pass through itself? Is it A, 7 times, B, 11 times, C, 17 times, or D, 36 times?
I'm going to guess D, 36, because I hope that's the answer.
Yeah, that is correct. It passes through itself 36 times.
Wow.
Hence the name Twister. You're
That makes my
constantly
stomach
turning.
sick.
It just keeps going back and forth through itself, which is pretty cool. You said it would make you sick.
Sounds like it.
Yeah. All right. That's the end of our quiz. And now I have a question for you, Brandon, as we begin to wrap up. What ride out of all these rides we just talked about, if you can only go in and you only had money for one ride, what ride would you do?
As much as I want to say the Scenic Skyway, yeah, that wouldn't be it. It would probably be Black Diamond.
That's a good choice.
Now, maybe that surprises you because I'm a big, well, Black Diamond, it is kind of a haunted experience as well, but I kind of like that it's different. It's not a typical haunted house type ride. It's kind of its own thing, which I appreciate with the mining theme and aspect of it.
It is pretty cool. That is one I would definitely want to ride, but you chose it, so I have to choose another one. I am going to go with Phoenix, the wooden roller coaster. It just looks amazing. It looks like so much fun, so I think I would go with Phoenix. All right, we're moving on from the rides. We're going to quickly cover food because this is interesting. Knoebels is constantly another thing it's rated for. So it wins awards for Phoenix, the roller coaster, but it also wins awards for the best food at an amusement park. And they're constantly battling with Dollywood over Best Food Golden Ticket Award from Amusement Today, which I think is great. Knoebels did actually win this award in 2022. So they have all this great food. I think we're going to just talk about one food item that they're probably famous for, but it does not make sense in Pennsylvania.
Are we going to talk about this? We're not going to talk about food in the next episode?
No food in the next episode.
You're only going to talk about one thing?
I apologize.
You're not going to talk about Candy Apple Orchard? No Bavarian nuts?
No. We're talking about gator bites, which just makes me laugh. When you think, like, I'm going to eat gator, or somebody tells you they eat gator, you think
Never Florida.
Florida, Louisiana, Alabama, I assume, maybe Georgia, those areas, but not Pennsylvania. I don't know. That's strange. Have you had gator before?
I have, and it probably tasted fine, but I couldn't get over the fact that I was eating gator. Do you ever eat something that it tastes okay until you realize what you're eating?
Absolutely, I have, yeah.
That's kind of how my experience eating gator was, except the whole time I knew what I was eating.
I assume it'd be very rough.
It's really not
rough.
It's
tough.
It's not that bad, actually, compared to, I mean, maybe you'd think it's like a tough meat, but when I had it, it wasn't that bad. And it was kind of probably similar to what they have here in Knoebels, kind of a fried chicken type preparation.
I was going to ask, did anybody at any point say, it tastes just like chicken?
I mean, you have to. And that's what I would equate it to.
Well, Gator Bites, there it is. I apologize to you, Brandon, and to any of our listeners who wanted us to cover more food. I am sorry. We talked about Gator Bites, and that's it for food.
You have one of the best restaurant/food parks, and you talk about Gator Bites.
Yeah.
I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We are going to move into one of our last segments. When you only leave one star. I don't know if I'm going to leave that music in there. My daughter really wanted to do that. I mean, I started it and she's like, can I join you? So that's my daughter with me singing. And maybe we won't leave that in there, but we'll play it because it's funny. So we're going to talk about Google reviews that have 1 star. And honestly, we're at a time, but there weren't any. Usually the purpose of this is to look for funny reviews of things that just don't make sense, or I don't know, people complaining too much. But as I read through the 1 star reviews, and if you found any, you can speak up. But as I read through them, most of them were just complaining about it's too crowded. The prices have gone up too much. It's overpriced now, which that kind of made me laugh. People complaining about teenagers running the park, which is very typical of an amusement park. Mix up at some of the pavilions, complaints about that. So I didn't find any that were very extremely funny or anything like that. I don't know about you. Did you find anything?
One person said the park is impossible to navigate. I mean, we're not even there. We navigated it pretty easily, you know?
Maybe they didn't look at a map.
Maybe not.
It can be confusing.
I always love I would like to give it 0 stars, but it won't let me.
Oh, yeah, that's a classic.
That's the classic. I mean, you really want to throw shade at somebody. That's what you say.
There's a lot of reviews that say it's not like it used to be. A lot of 1-star reviews that complain that it's not the same. But honestly, you probably went as a kid and did not pay attention to the service. You were just there hanging out with your friends. Then you become an adult. And now you know you have a voice online.
I'm looking at this one you have up right now about the boot on the car. So the person said they parked in what they thought was a handicapped spot with their handicap placard, even told by an employee that they were good. When they asked if it was a good spot, came back to find this after spending over $300 in the park. That's a lot of money. I mean, maybe. Tried to explain the situation and was told, too bad, pay the money or we don't take it off. Cannot believe a place whose business is fun, food, and fantasy, as they put it, would hold your vehicle hostage for $20. So, I mean, this person had to, you said parking was free, but this person had to pay $20 to park, I guess.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Nice scam. I even had an event notice on my dashboard that told me my exact location. They could have just drove their little wannabe cop car security buggy over and explained the situation. I would gladly move instead of being strong-armed out of $20 and having the aluminum wheel on my vehicle gouged up. Enjoy the $20, Knoebels. The last money you'll ever get on me and my family.
I think I have the winner of them all. I'm going to share this and we will move on. Here we go. From Toby in all caps. Bring an extra pair of pants. Great place. But we had just come back from the French fries place. I bet that was good food. I did some more rides and then it set in. I couldn't find a restroom near me and I had to go. We were doing the Haunted Mansion. Oh, he says the Haunted House next. And it was my first time at Knoebels, spelled wrong. I told my family that I was fine. Yeah, Knoebels. I told my family that I was fine and I would find one after we got off. But I did not know what to expect. Everything went fine the first few minutes, but then it happened. On the last turn, everything let loose. The house scared me so much that even my butt had a reaction. And the things that came out were scarier than the ride itself. I panicked as I left the ride walking funny. As you can imagine, the car ride was not a blast either. I would highly recommend this place, but only if you bring an extra pair of pants. I'm pretty sure that's not a real review.
It's a joke review, but why would you give them 1 star? That kind of sucks.
Yeah, you're bringing their stars down, but
it's funny.
You might need to bring an extra pair of pants.
Do not go on the haunted house at Knoebels. And if you have to go to the restroom, please go to the restroom beforehand.
Yeah. Well, Brandon, I think we've covered it all. I just have a last few final thoughts. Would you want to visit this park?
Yeah, I think so. It's unique enough that it's not just going to some random carnival park of some sort. You do have some of the standard rides that maybe you'd skip because you've done it before. But I think this offers enough uniqueness and history that it would be worth a visit.
I agree.
Would I go on a family vacation just to visit this park? Maybe I would. Maybe
just hit up Pennsylvania.
Yeah, if you're doing a Pennsylvania trip, this probably is worth your time.
Yeah.
But there's tons of parks in Pennsylvania. So if you want to do an all amusement park trip through Pennsylvania, you're going to have a good time.
Yeah, I agree. I would go. Does it have a waterfall in the park? This is an important question.
Yeah,
because we love waterfalls.
I care about waterfalls a little bit. I mean, I prefer man-made waterfalls to God-made waterfalls. Yeah, I don't know why I love man-made waterfalls so much. I've always been a fan of water features, and I mean, I didn't come across one when I was doing my research. Did you find any waterfalls?
There is a waterfall in Haunted Mansion, if that's what you'd want to call it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
There is a water mill. Anyway, you know what I'm talking about. I can't think of it right now, but the water turns the mill which turns a bunch of gears, which has a rod that goes across the walkway. And in one of the pavilions, the pavilion just turns slowly and it's being turned by that water. So how do I explain this?
That's a free ride then.
It has no purpose. It serves no purpose that the pavilion roof turns. It's just that it's really cool and it's powered by that water. So not a waterfall, but pretty cool.
The water does fall off the wheel to
Yeah.
move the pavilion. All right. Cool.
All right. I think that's it. Do you have any final thoughts about Knoebels Amusement Resort?
I think it is confusing that they have two cities in Pennsylvania called Elysburg or Elysburg, whatever you call them, because some people might get confused thinking it's at a different place, but they can't control that. But that's my only thought.
Yeah, that can be confusing for some, I guess. Well, that is it. Our first episode down. I think we did okay.
Yeah.
But we will keep going. Like I mentioned, our next episode will be a part 2 where we will discuss the rides in more detail. I know we passed through a bunch of them today. So if that is something you're interested in, please come back and join us as we discuss the rides. And in fact, that episode actually will be coming out the same day as this episode. So if you started with that episode, we're going to redirect you back to this first one. But I think that it is it for now. And we will see you next time. Okay, let's go.